Good afternoon. Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Monday, September the 24th. Well, all the news is in Washington, it seems like. What's today's news about Donald Trump? Well, there was some talk this morning that Rod Rosenstein, the head of the FBI, was going to either resign or be fired by Trump today. They apparently had a discussion, but it put off a longer discussion until Thursday. He's still in charge. There are many questions about the report that he talked about taping Trump, and of course Trump hadn't been happy that the FBI has been continuing its investigation of his doings and dealings with Russian campaign matters. So who knows? The other big news is the continuing controversy over Brett Kavanaugh, the nominee for the United States Supreme Court. Now 4 women, 2 by name and 2 somewhat more thinly sourced, but supposedly have come forward with reports of sexual assault or sexual improprieties by the nominee. He denies them all and says he's not going to be intimidated into stepping down. There's a great deal of question about whether he'll survive or not. Tom Cotton, for his point, says he believes Brett Kavanaugh. That's good enough. What woman could possibly be telling the truth about sexual assault allegations against a man? Elsewhere, report today that college enrollment in Arkansas has declined by about 1%. The administration writes this off as just a typical fluctuation, but this administration has been pushing to send more people to college. It doesn't seem to be working. It's particularly not working at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, where enrollment is down sharply, and they're looking at big budget cuts as a result. Interesting to learn that a survey of students there finds that they feel like many teachers and administrations at Little Rock, that the E-STEM high school that was placed there over the wishes of faculty as a charter high school is a real detriment to other students. A lot of activity on campus, strains resources, bad for traffic, and it's just not a good fit with an older college enrollment. More scandal from the legislature. Great reporting by Michael Whitline of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette over the weekend. He learned that Representative Joe Jett gave a $16,000 loan to financially troubled House Speaker Jeremy Gillum in 2016, just shortly before Gillum appointed him chairman of the powerful Revenue and Taxation Commissions. Just friends being friends, you understand. Nothing improper about this. Of course, you shouldn't be giving loans to each other. There's too many favors done at the legislature already without adding money to the mix. The funny thing is this story appeared in the same paper in which Representative Bob Ballinger tried to explain back in the op-ed pages what he meant when he said nobody out at the legislature was in it for self-interest. Well, I can list you about 24 representatives who face criminal charges who've been otherwise exposed for looking after anybody but the public's interest as they worked out there and worked at pretty good pay and benefits while they were at it, by the way. More national publicity today, this time in the New York Times, for the FAY, or the Arkansas Medicaid work rule. It's particularly a failure insofar as people learning that the rule exists and then figuring out the state's complicated computerized reporting system to prove that they're working. Only about 1,200 people were able to figure out the system so far. 4,300 people have lost their coverage, thousands more to come. The Veterans Affairs Department reported today on progress in its review of work of a pathologist at the Fayetteville Medical Center who apparently was fired for coming to work drunk. It looks like after a review of something less than half of his 33,000 cases that there were perhaps 1,100 or more errors there, 11 of them serious, and perhaps 3 deaths related to misdiagnosis in his work. He has denied that he was impaired while at work. A catch-up from last week, we left you ahead of the so-called rally for French Hill, the Republican congressman who had Vice President Mike Pence in town Friday afternoon. Well, they drew a crowd of a not very enthusiastic 200 or 300 people, perhaps. It certainly didn't look like a Trump rally. Is this a sign of the enthusiasm for French Hill's campaign itself? Certainly not a great draw in Mike Pence, and so that's good news for Clark Tucker, the Democratic opponent of French Hill. News today from Dallas. A police chief has finally, and somewhat belatedly, many critics think, fired Amber Geiger, the police officer who shot and killed Botham Jean, the Harding College graduate who was in his own apartment minding his own business when she burst in. She claimed she thought it was her apartment. She was mistaken, thought he was a burglar, and killed him. She's been charged with manslaughter, but the case is still under investigation. And finally, what would a day be without a word for the smarmy Kenneth Starr, the former Whitewater persecutor? He has a new book out about his remembering his times in the Clinton investigation. The Democrat Gazette gave him a lot of page one space today to talk about it. He thinks Bill and Hillary Clinton are dishonest and terrible people. He doesn't think much of Henry Woods, Jim Guy Tucker, Susan McDougal, Webster Hubble, and a lot of other people he encountered in Arkansas. Well, guess what, Ken? The feeling is mutual, I have to say. The article didn't mention how he was more or less fired at Baylor University as president for turning a blind eye to a giant sex scandal in the athletic department. He's a mentor of Brett Kavanaugh, who's now in his own sex scandal, so maybe there's a little bit of a karmic convergence there. I'm Resisting. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.
Listen to our music, you will feel it. You feel it in here.
The music is surviving, probably more than ever.
We owe it to New Orleans, we owe it to the world to keep it going.
It's a feeling that you have that was deep in you, powerful.
What is Mardi Gras Indian to New Orleans? Mardi Gras Indians is New Orleans.
We created rock and roll. We created swing, you know what I'm saying?